Hey Decoders! This week we're looking at the fact that reality is a place where you're never going to be stuck. That's wild, right? Because in this moment I feel stuck. But let's decode stuckness. Hi, I'm Kiran Trace. Welcome to Humans Decoded, a story of hobbits, fairies, elves, dwarfs, gnomes, and humans. If you get lost at any point, there is a deep dive on all the different avatars in episode 1. It includes notes. Thank you for joining us in a fun little chat about the vast potential of our human makeup. Hi, Cami.
Hey! I'm just so happy to be here. And it's funny, I am also feeling really strung out, tired, fatigued. And I looked at the episode title, Not Really Stuck Because There's Infinite Neuropathways. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. Because the feeling right now is I'm going to be tired forever. But actually, what we're looking at today, which I'm just so happy about, is the infinite possibilities always available to us.
Yes! Leela's with us also. Hi, Leela.
Hi, everybody. I kind of sit in the same boat. I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. And then we get on this call, we start recording, and I'm like, oh, I forgot that I was tired. It's like, it's not a thing, actually. So, yay. Let's get into it.
I remember the first time I ever heard Kiran say this at a retreat, and she said, you can build infinite neuro pathways. And that really stuck with me, not just for that retreat, but for the whole year and still a few years, because whenever I feel really stuck, it's just such a balm to hear that. I kind of repeat it to myself, you can build infinite neuro pathways. And it's having that reminder that there's always a way forward. That's such a blessing. At times, it's been a lifesaver.
Yeah, what you're saying reminds me of this moment, and I'm just seeing it so clearly right now, of standing in the river here in Ticino and just seeing all the rocks in the riverbed, but seeing the water sort of moving them, and then just understanding that the water is always going to be the strongest force. Like, throw into that river what you want, logs, mountains even. The water's eventually going to wash it down, and it doesn't care how much is in the way. So yeah, stuck isn't really a thing. And that felt so comforting in a way. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, Cam, right?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful visual illustration of that.
Yeah, and I feel like there's this quality of there's nothing to do here that I really want to talk about.
You know, just this week alone, I had 3 different notes from students about being stuck. One was somebody in the 7 Days to Free Your Mind training. It's such a beautiful and important little training. I mean, little, but it has a big boom at the end. The people get stuck, you know, and they're stuck in that acceptance. It's an acceptance process. They get stuck meeting something that they just cannot accept. And I was sending an email saying, no, you're not stuck. It's just that you need some awareness of what's not willing to accept things. And bow to that. And it was like I was putting this little stone in the path where the step was just too big. You know, like your example, like if they're in the river and they're walking on these steps, you know, it's just too big. And that's it. It's just put that little blip there, the little path there, the little nugget there. And then, wow, this big freedom opens. Someone also this week had written to me about being really affected by animals being mistreated, and the way we treat animal habitats, and feeling really stuck in the despair and the grief, feeling like those emotions were so overwhelming. And then honestly, I got another email almost the very next day, and they were feeling overwhelmed by not safe. The events in California, there's a lot of military force. There's a very us versus them. And in both of these cases, it was like, how do I get clear? How do I get to the other side when it feels just so overwhelming, feels so real? And in both of these cases, I'm like, no, you're not stuck. You're overwhelmed. And that's an emotional sensation. Again, this metaphor of that river, right? There's just like, you're on one step and clarity feels like way far away from the next step. And you just need a little closer stepping stone. But it's hard to see that when we're really falling for the overwhelmed story, or when that exhaustion story, whatever it is so loud, or grief. So it's okay. Like, I can give you that little stepping stone.
Maybe here we can open up, like, why is it that we do feel so stuck? Yes, the next step or clarity seems so far away, but I feel like there's more. We feel so stuck, but we're never actually stuck. Why is that?
Most of us have guided our lives as if the emotions are real, as if they're factual information about reality, but they aren't. And I know that sounds offensive. I know, but it's true.
Hold on a minute. What? What did you just say?
What do you mean? It's not real? Come on.
Right. Dramatic pause right here. All decoders, everybody listening. I'm just going to give you a minute of silence. Just like pause for all the times you felt that you needed to feel all your feelings, or you were trying to feel all your feelings, because that is not a recipe or a map to freedom. Pause. It is, however, a great way to get stuck.
Jesus. I can see, like, as you're saying this, I can feel how the emotions are sort of this haywire, as you would call it, Kiran, that are just binding the stories together. They're like holding the stories. And I know that, like, none of that is needed. It's so safe to, and, sidebar, I know this is probably too abstract, but let me say it anyway, because in this moment it's dropping for me. So bear with me. Like, it's so safe to just lay it down and not carry the story around, not carry the emotion that keeps the story together around. But there's this super addicted chunky thing inside of me and everybody, I'd say, that just fucking wants to keep the emotions and keep, of course, the story, and keep entertaining the notion that it's real, because it's like this, it just feasts on that. It's like its favorite candy, cocaine, drama, soap opera, whatever. Yeah.
And I feel like this might be hard to digest, but these are like life-changing gems. I feel like if you can get on board with this, you can change the whole trajectory of your life, your relationships, your emotional landscape, your day-to-day happiness, your fulfillment. Like, you could be a different person here on out.
Okay. Let's take it slow. Let's start with emotions. Why these are not pointers of reality. Let's begin with the very first basic. 99% of emotions that you're feeling have a backlog of all the emotions that didn't get fully released. So maybe in this moment, I don't know, you're on a date and the person is on their phone. You're feeling crushed. You feel unseen, humiliation, shame, not because of what is happening in the moment, but because you had a father who left you when you were 6. And maybe you also got fired from your job. And 5 years even before that, you had a terrible breakup with your ex cheating on you. 5 years before that, you can track this whole lifetime of shame, humiliation, rage that's pressurizing this moment. So to begin with, it's an old story. It's like 90% the old story than the actual person in front of you on their phone instead of being with you on the date.
That's so fascinating.
Also, the shame, humiliation, rage that's cascading through your system is more of a tell of your karmic past, your baggage, as we're saying, or sometimes we call it your wiring, than what's occurring in reality. And we can prove that because 5 people on the same date will have 5 different responses. And it's not because someone's on their phone. Because one person might be like, phew, we get permission to check the messages? Yay, I have to check my messages. Another person might be like, holy crow, my ex left me because I was on the phone. And it's nothing. So 5 different responses proving to us it's not fact. It's not reality. The only thing that's occurring is someone is on their phone. That's the only fact. But we're projecting a whole story based on 40 years of backlogged emotional material.
I'm just so enthusiastic about this information. Like, where else are we hearing this in the world? And it's just so true.
And that's a key to the fact that we're never really stuck. Because stuck is more about emotional overwhelm and a projected story. It's not about reality. Because in reality, there's always a path. There's always the next moment. Always, always, always. It's not real that we are stuck. Stuck is an illusion.
And thank you for popping this illusion. I feel like there's maybe a metaphor coming on, but as if we were on a bus and it's really dark and dingy inside and there's only one tiny porthole. So all you could see is black and maybe a little pinprick of light. And everybody's like, this is how the bus is. The only thing that exists is the bus. And then Kieran's just like chilling outside of the bus. And she's sitting in this beautiful meadow just calling out, hey, there's a meadow here. And it's vast. It's full of potential. And so I feel like it's just so powerful to have someone standing so firmly in reality, pointing it out, like describing it back to us. And I think it's the complete opposite of everything you hear in the world narrative ever. So this is just gold.
What to do with your emotional backlog is a conversation for another day. So this is actually not me dissing emotions. I'm just saying that they're not your compass for reality in any way whatsoever.
And I feel like it's really important to mention here that we're talking about all the emotions, not just the crappy negative ones, but also the positive ones. There's a ton of backlog and story there as well. And ooh, can they get you? But all of it goes in the same category, like not real, not reality.
Yes. For instance, excited. It feels very positive. Everybody, you want to feel excited.
Must be
but
true.
It's not a pointer about reality. Must be true. I'm excited. It's a pointer about your karmic wiring, your baggage. And I'm always going to flag that sensation of excitement because it's pointing to something that's not real and it's not true. It's a projected expectation about what's going to unfold. And it's going to drive you right in to this illusion. And decoders, you know this term that we use. We call it la la, la 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 la. We got la la. It's that fake, tranced out hallucination. And you think it's so easy to think that it's real. But man, the wheels come off. And then reality hits, which it always will hit. Reality wins the day, people. And then, whoa, that tranced out, fake, happy place hurts. And, there's also false states of joy, this ungrounded, blissed out, we talk about that a lot when we're talking about romance. It can happen so much in spirituality, spiritual trance. It's a kind of a blissed out lavender haze, like it's all good, or this is real divine presence, or I'm really floating in the heart space. This is not a pointer of reality. And most of the time, if you're going to be blissing out like that, whether it's your relationship or your spiritual practice or something, it's going to be heavy. It's going to land bad.
You're going to wake up with a hell of a hangover there.
We're saving you the trouble, guys.
Here's the good news. Reality will always have a way forward. The closer we're aligned to reality, the more we can hear the way forward. We know from neuroscience that the actual wiring in our brain, these are called neuron pathways. These are ways that your system can sort of track a movement forward. In your brain, your mind will follow a neuro pathway. We actually have this infinite ability to grow these neurons. It's not like you get to 70 years old and now you're like, okay, all my pathways have atrophied. No, you can continually grow more and more pathways. And the more pathways we have, the more roots through something. They're literally pathways. And there's studies in neuroscience that, like at 90 years old, even at 105, you can have way more pathways than you did at 27. Your brain is profoundly elastic. And these neuro pathways, which are actually chemical transmitters, have this infinite capacity to grow, to build. And the more pathways you have, the more roots you have through something. Then, of course, the more options you have to find a fulfilling path. If you have 10 paths, chances are 3 or 4 of them are going to be truly fulfilling. If you only have one path, it may or may not be very fulfilling. So this is me saying to you, you can build out fulfilling possibilities. You can grow those pathways infinitely. And there's a common mistake that can happen here all the time. People think it's like, okay, I'm going to think through what I want. And that's imagining it. Or that's the awareness. Because I'll always say, let's put some awareness on something and people will think about it. But that mental thinking is more of the time, it's about control and controlling an outcome. Control can't build a neuro pathway. When I'm saying imagine these possibilities, or let's bring some awareness into your being, some awareness into the moment, and let's bring some awareness on the opportunities, I'm talking about listening to your being. I'm talking about using the sense of awareness, not the mental sense. Your awareness can recognize what outcomes or what solutions, what opportunities one would like, and that can build a pathway. Let me use an example. I can imagine a peaceful outcome from my divorce. Now, if I'm emotionally overwhelmed with an enormous amount of rage, maybe I want my ex to pay for my emotional pain. I want to, I want them to hurt. So perhaps the pathway is like, I'm going to stay in this house and that fucker's going to leave, and they got to find their own place. What I want best for all of us is like that I have full custody of the kids, blah, 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 blah. So we've already talked about that emotional overwhelm. That emotion is nothing in reality. So there's nothing that can grow here. It's just an illusion. We could say, If we're going to share the kids, then I need to make sure that they're doing this schooling or this program or this, swimming lesson, and they need to be able to get this. And I want to make sure, and you can just hear the level of control and rage and grief, not a solution. Nothing can grow. But if you're listening from your being, sort of below the emotions, below that control, below the rage, below the emotional pain, you're going to hear what might be true fulfillment to your being. Now you have to be in the seat of awareness. You have to move your awareness from the mental loop back into the present moment, into this one still place, and that awareness can hear. Okay, we can share custody of the kids, and the kids will get to have a say on future caregivers, on schooling. The kids' solutions mixed with both of our input, and will work for consensus. I want my ex to have input, be a part of my kids' lives. Okay, now we have a path forward that's in alignment to reality, because awareness was in reality, not in the emotion. This can build a neural pathway. The reason is because this has helpful chemical conductors that move a pathway in your brain. Control, which is illusion, it doesn't have any helpful chemicals with it. It, in fact, breaks the pathways, right? What breaks a neural pathway? Trauma, overwhelm, pain. We know this. We know that this produces unhelpful chemical conductors. You can tell, this because you feel blocked, right? You're overwhelmed, you're cascaded, and you feel like up against the wall. And you feel like disempowered. You feel there's no doors or windows out. Like, that's how you know the neurotransmitter got broken, or the chemical, there's no helpful chemical conductor there.
There are no helpful chemicals coming from emotional overwhelm. Hey Decoders, this is a cliffhanger here. We are coming back next week with our wonderful examples of feeling stuck but not actually being stuck. This was such a juicy topic with so many insights. So we want to pause here, let you digest what we've dropped so far, and pick it up next week. Talk to you then.
Thank you for listening. We obviously love hearing what you think. Your feedback helps us make a better show for you to listen to. So feel free to comment, and you can do it at Facebook, which is the Humans Decoded podcast. And if you're not on social, you can always email any questions to us at outreach@kirantrace.com. And thanks for listening. We love you.